Chris, it's me again. It's James Adair from Sierra Pacific Mortgage and the PDX Home Loan team, and we are kicking off another episode of the Equity Accelerator podcast, where we unpack all kinds of ideas around putting yourself in the very best possible position with your financing, with your own personal mortgage or real estate business, with your relationships, etc. But today, you and I had a great conversation about someone pretty close to the action, pretty near and dear to our hearts, who is older. And we thought it would be a great topic to discuss the unique needs of, I guess you might call them the boomers.
I think that's good.
Active equity management for real estate, baby boomer / senior edition. Is that that's too long of a title for this podcast? But I think
we'll work it out. We'll wordsmith that. But yes, that is exactly what we were talking about. Because I think, like for example, my mom, she's getting to a spot where she's trying to figure out she has this house. She's lived in this house. I don't know if this is a boomer thing, but she's lived in that house for over 45 years.
It is a boomer thing.
You know, they say NAR says people move on average every 7 to 9 years, but my mom's been in that house for 40, 50 years. I don't know. She's been in there a long time.
She might be older than technically whatever. She might be greatest generation.
Maybe. She might be. Yeah, she might be.
So the greatest generation is more influenced by the Great Depression. You know, she may have had, when was she born?
Yeah. I don't remember. I don't know. I think she, well, I can't say her
Must
name.
Be the 30s maybe? She may be born in the Depression. I don't know.
Close. Well, no, my dad was. I don't think my mom was. But the point is that she has all of this equity, and she's now trying to look at her options. The house is too much for her.
Right.
And she's looking at her options. And I was like, there's too much, Mom. There's too much for me to help you. I don't know what questions to even ask you to try to help you make some decisions, because she's trying to get to make some decisions. I said, you need to talk to James, right? Because James just has a different way of thinking about how to use mortgages as financial instruments or tools to accomplish what it is you're trying to accomplish. So I selfishly, I thought this would be a great episode just so we could talk concretely about options that seniors, boomers have.
Yeah, I had a very just brief exchange with her. So we haven't met yet. So I don't know the situation exactly, but I do know that her situation is a common one, and our population is aging. And one of the really unique things, a big generational shift is that older people haven't always thought of real estate as an investment. They've just thought of it as a home, and then they have a pension, and maybe some other investments.
Totally. Yeah,
maybe they own some T-bills or something like that. But their concept of investing does not include real estate. Mm-hmm. Well, I won't say that as a blanket statement, but it's less frequently includes the idea of real estate. So it's an idea of what we call compartmentalization. People compartmentalize. Well, I have a house, but then I have my investments. Yeah. And
totally. Yep.
The newer generation, the newer model is to kind of integrate all those things together. Is like, well, I have this type of asset, I have this type of asset, and this type of asset, and then I have this liabilities here, and we kind of blob them all together. Right. And see about creating efficiencies that way. So that's the kind of thinking that I like or that's the way I just see things. So for your mom, it sounds like she might need to move, right? So maybe it's a sale, maybe it's a restructuring of debt. And for older people, we can also start talking about a reverse mortgage as well. And I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's a solution for her, but certainly people in her cohort. That's an option on the table. If you're 62 years old, you can qualify for a reverse mortgage. And they have TV commercials. Mm-hmm. Tom Selleck is the latest pitch man for reverse mortgages.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, it's interesting. When I first became in the mortgage business, when I first got in the mortgage business 16 years ago, the reverse mortgage TV pitch man was Tom Bosley, who was the dad from Happy Days.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
And then it transferred, ironically enough, to Henry Winkler, the Fonz from the very same show. He became the pitch man for that demographic. And now our third version of this is Tom Selleck, who still looks great. His mustache is still dark and thick. And he's very trustworthy. But the reverse mortgage has a sort of a spotty reputation.
Yeah.
Particularly in the financial services space. It's one of those things that is, it's tricky. They're complicated.
Yeah.
They're hard to understand. They do come with quite a bit of fees. And I think that the people who need them are, I don't know what's the right word, like a fragile, audience for them. So it's an easy area where that gets exploited. So it's really important if you're going to have a reverse mortgage conversation. If you're listening to this, maybe you're thinking of your own parents. It's really important that you know who's talking to them, who's in their ear about a reverse mortgage. My one fear about reverse mortgages is they can be extremely heavy on commissions, just like an annuity. It's kind of like in that annuity space.
Yeah.
So if they just call the 1-800 number on the Tom Selleck commercial, I don't know who you're going to get,
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, and that's to the point of like having somebody that can actually ask the right questions and know and hear what's the goal, and then try to see like what are the options to get to that goal is why I wanted her to talk to you.
Yeah.
If you can you bottom line a reverse mortgage? Because I've heard of them. Yeah. I feel like I sort of vaguely know what they are, but then I probably don't at all really know what they are.
So I guess in a nutshell, a regular standard mortgage, sometimes you call them a forward mortgage, is like, okay, I'm going to borrow $250,000 at this rate. I'm going to make this payment. And after 30 years, my $250,000 mortgage will shrink, right? A reverse mortgage goes the other way. So instead of making payments, you can set it up so that it pays you and it grows over time, or you can set it up so it doesn't necessarily pay you, but the amount you owe is growing over time. It allows you to stay in your property. I mean, the clearest benefit to a reverse mortgage is your mortgage payment goes away and you don't have to qualify for it. So if someone who has like really bad credit and just on a Social Security and they have a house and maybe a small mortgage or no mortgage, you can get a reverse mortgage and access your equity without selling the house. And it really can extend people's financial options as they age.
I see. So basically you're using the equity in the home to make a payment to yourself up until a certain point. I would imagine they're saying like your house is valued at this. It's not, you're not going to loan over.
You get an appraisal just like any other mortgage. And interestingly, it's like you have to have a house. It has to be your primary residence. You have to be of a certain age. And you have to prove a very basic income threshold. You can't just be totally destitute and qualify for a reverse mortgage. You have to basically prove, because you get a reverse mortgage, you still have to pay the property taxes and you have to keep it insured. So you have to prove that you have enough money coming in that you can cover those obligations plus whatever other debts you have. But in general, that's not that high of a barrier to clear. But that's the basic in a nutshell. One thing I wanted to also say is that the 62 years old being the minimum, they qualify for the smallest possible mortgage. So the older you are, the more they give you, because they figured the older you are, the less time you're going to be in that loan.
Right.
It's really kind of like a life insurance kind of.
Yeah, I get that
mentality.
So, I mean, there are a lot of different, reverse mortgages are only one way.
That's just one thing. Exactly.
One thing. There are other things to do, whether it's refinancing or, I didn't even know all the options, and we don't need to cover that here. But I think the point for this episode is like, if you are a boomer or a senior, or you have a family member like I do, who is in this spot where it's like, the house is more than I need.
Right.
It has all the keep up. It's got all the, all the stuff I have to do to keep it up.
Right.
I want some options, but I don't, and to her point, it's like, I don't want to go live in, a one-room senior community. Right. So there are options, and she doesn't know where to go for answers. And I think that's what I love about what this is for you is I think some mortgages, I shouldn't say this, but I just, the reputation, I think sometimes in mortgages, if she were going to call anybody like Tom Selleck's hotline, and like whoever they talk to is interested in getting the loan. They're not necessarily interested in helping my mom figure out all her options. They're interested in closing the loan because that's how they get paid.
Right. I'm seeing the attitude that we're espousing here is a growing philosophy in the mortgage industry.
Which part? That mortgage
The
people,
idea of like, hey, I'm not here to sell loan. The idea of
consulting or
really being an advisor instead of a salesperson, right?
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, me too. I'm really proud of the shift that has taken place. And as the industry could loosen up again, and we might see us revert back into a very product-based transactional thing. I mean, it hasn't happened yet. It remains to be seen. But yeah, I don't want to. I guess I'm glad that you see that in my practice, but I don't want to sit here and say that I'm the only one doing that.
Well, sure.
There's certainly a lot of people that I look up to that have that approach.
I think that's fair. I think that's
so.
Fair.
I think another thing that I have noticed in this type of age group, people in that, in their 60s and 70s and beyond, is really, it's like a paradigm shift that is hard to make. If you've lived your whole life trying to pay down debt, and then now you have a lot of home equity and maybe not a lot of income, or maybe you have some other debts, for me to come in and say, hey, let's put a reverse mortgage on here, or hey, let's refinance this, pull cash out, drop some cash into your, pay off these debts and make sure you have some liquidity, moving forward. Sometimes it just really stresses them out. They don't, it doesn't compute. They can't live a whole, like sometimes I do feel like my challenge is that I'm asking someone to change their financial philosophy that they've built over a lifetime.
Sure.
And I've just sat down with them for whatever, half hour. Yeah. And it's hard, sometimes it takes it's a much longer conversation sometimes to get them to emotionally disassociate from the idea of their debt, their home. I own this home free and clear. I finally own it outright. And now I need to put another mortgage on it. Like there's a huge component of people out there who feel like if they have a mortgage, they actually don't own their home. It's like, well, I only own 20% of my home and the bank owns the other. The bank does not own the home. Right. But it's hard to, even me saying that doesn't solve the problem for that type of attitude. Right. Yeah. Anyway, I hear that.
Well, we can end with this. Again, if you listening to this are a senior, a boomer, or have somebody in your life that is there and you're looking like there are options. And I think it starts with a good conversation where you can look at all your angles to try to accomplish what's best for the person that's trying to sell. So James, I think that's where the invitation for people to connect with you comes in. Like, where can people reach out to you?
Yeah. The active equity management, we also call it sometimes just a liability review. Like, let's just take all your debts, put them in one place at one time, see what the total cost of this over time is.
Yeah.
Are there opportunities to pay things off more strategically? Is there an opportunity to restructure your debts so you pay them off faster or free up cash every month? It's different for everybody. It's case by case. Very often we just look at it and decide not to do anything and just keep an eye on it. Like that's valuable too, because everyone's trying to mail you, a letter saying you should refi. The government wants you to refi, get a 15-year loan, all this thing. It's just, it's never one size fits all.
Right.
And, everyone has a different philosophy. They have different options, different pieces on their game board. So I would love for people to, if they are nodding their head and hearing themselves or people in their family in this type of analysis, please reach out to us. I can be found anywhere on the internet. If you just look up James Adair, ADAIR, or you can find my website, which is just the pdxhomeloan.com, pdxhomeloan.com. Email me, james@pdxhomeloan.com, and we can start that conversation. Lickety split, no problem.
Lickety split. Good stuff, man. Thanks for bringing some wisdom and some options for people that are needing options. Until next time, James. Good stuff. We'll see ya.
Thanks, Chris.